So welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our YouTube channel. So in my last video, I was just introducing myself and giving you a little bit of background information about why I started Harmonious Divorce. I mentioned that I have a business partner, Joe. So Joe is here today, and Joe is going to give us a little bit of information about his journey in terms of like how he came through his own divorce. Just briefly going to touch on that, and then Joe's going to talk to us a little bit about mediation in general, with the focus on his experience as a mediator, and then also just Joe's opinions on the legal system in Ireland, and what his views are in terms of where the issues are with that. So Joe, hopefully you'll be appearing on future YouTube videos here. So do you want to start maybe by just kind of telling us a little bit about your story, about how you found the legal process when you were going through your own divorce?
Yeah. I was separated. I was married for 5 years, going on 6, and sort of we broke up in the summer of 2019. And so the first protocol that generally most people go to is to go to your solicitor and see what the story is and what the process is and what happens. Now, I come from a legal background myself, so I wasn't a mediator at that stage. I had been a barrister for several years, and then went into the hospitality industry. But in saying that, I still went to the solicitor to see what and my ex-wife went to her solicitor as well to see what the process was from there on in. And every solicitor, excuse me, now since the Mediation Act has to kind of say, have you gone through mediation or have you considered mediation? Doesn't mean they have to go to mediation at all. So I hadn't really known too much about mediation at that point. I hadn't been a barrister when the Mediation Act was enacted. So I hadn't really known much about it. So I said, can I get a few names of my solicitor? And then I passed on those few names to my ex-wife and said, would you be interested in doing this? And she initially said kind of no. I don't think she had. I don't think she knew what the process was either. So there wasn't much information out there at the time. And but then again, she came back. She spoke to her solicitor and she said, okay, well, we'll try mediation. And the both of us did. And we went to like three or four sessions, and it just didn't work out. And it just, I think it was too much emotion involved, and it was still pretty raw for both of us.
And at what stage did you go? Like how long? Because this is often something I think about, that like the timing of when you separate to when you actually start mediation, that can be an important kind of factor in terms of like the success or not. Because if you go too soon, sometimes, and obviously we're going to touch on like the psychotherapy aspect, but even taking that aside, I think sometimes you sort of need to just sit with the whole, emotions yourself for a while of, this has happened, this is my situation, before you're even ready to go near the financial division and all of that side of stuff. So with or without psychotherapy, I always feel that to do it too soon, it's almost a timing thing.
It can be, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think for us specifically, I don't think it would have worked out in the end anyway in terms of mediation, and for some couples that is the case. But yeah, it can be pretty raw for couples at the very start, if to come into a room to a mediator and you're discussing about splitting your life apart that you previously had, and if it's only within a couple of weeks, then yeah, it can be a bit too soon. It depends on where they are in the journey, I suppose. For each couple, it could be that there was a breakdown in the marriage for a long time, and they've only decided to make the decision to kind of legally separate, and so it really does depend on each couple.
Yeah.
With ourselves in Harmonious Divorce, I mean, I suppose that's what your idea was, Keelan, was to kind of take that emotional hardship and be able to do something with it. To be able to help couples get through that emotional hardship before they get to the point where they can attend mediation. And there is no service out there at the moment other than ourselves that helps couples like this. So I think it depends on each couple. It's that to answer your question.
Yeah, sure. And in terms of, so you had a number of sessions of mediation. You both came to the conclusion that it wasn't going to be for you, and you went down the court route. Like in my first video, I was kind of talking about like the three key areas for me that were the three big difficulties, I guess, in my divorce. One being the amount of time it took, because it just took an enormous amount of time. Now, that was partly because of COVID, because everything shut down, obviously, and the courts had a massive backlog. Plus, a lot of people decided they wanted to get divorced during COVID. So, all of those kind of elements. But the second thing then was the cost involved. Obviously, because it went on for so long, you're still back and forth. You're still it's not that you're not liaising with your solicitor and your legal team. Things happen naturally with your ex, particularly when you have kids involved. There's always stuff that comes up. So there's constant letters going back and forth, and the bills are racking up. So the money was a huge issue. And then but the third, I suppose, for me, the most important was the emotional drain, and like obviously the time and the money also caused a problem for me emotionally, but it was the actual just the emotional the turmoil that you're actually going through for that duration of period. So I guess for you, when you realized that the mediation wasn't working for you and you went down the legal route, did you find the same? Did you where was it similar to you, for you, those three areas, or did you have a different experience?
No, it was the same. I mean, obviously the first one is the financial aspect of it. And as you said, there's emails and there's calls and the bills are racking up. You are charged for each of those points of contact. You're, any disagreement that comes along the line, the court appearances by not necessarily by you or your ex spouse, but your legal team go in and have to, they speak to the county registrar, to see court progression or case progression hearings, and all these things rack up. A price. You're paying for a solicitor, odds are you're paying for a barrister, and if it's a higher end case in the High Court, you could be paying for a senior counsel and a junior counsel. So the fees are always there. Time as well, absolutely. I don't think. I think you when you said with COVID, yes, there was backlogs, but there's always backlogs, and there was backlogs before COVID. My solicitor told me that I was initially in Kildare, living in Kildare at the time, and they said in Kildare there was a wait time, I think 3 or 4 years to get a date.
Wow,
Dublin was a little bit shorter, and this was pre-COVID as well. Dublin was a little bit shorter, but not by much. And I think they mentioned then Cork. It could have been 5 or 6 year wait to get before a judge for everything to be resolved, and if everyone's fighting all the way. So that's massive time. It's time that you don't get back.
No,
there's instability because one or both parties might be living in the family home separately. They could or be both forced to move to home to parents, or to and with kids there's no stability of where they're going to be going to school.
Exactly.
The separation may have began when they were 7 or 8 years old, and then they're going into secondary school by the time things finish up.
And for kids, those are the times okay, for every phase, I suppose, with children is the most important, but 5 years in a child's life is a huge amount of time, and to think of both parents going through such uncertainty and such emotional difficulties, it is actually very sad when you think about it, that it does take that long. And it's not just sad on the kids, it's also sad on the individuals, and it's just overall, I've got, and I've talked about this a lot with you about how I think this system is so wrong how it's set up. And you shouldn't, you're almost you're punished because your relationship hasn't worked out, and for you to free yourself up and have a chance of a happy life and a second chance, everyone gets punished almost, so it's it's, you know, but I suppose going back to the kids, like that's a huge, you know, a huge amount of time, and a lot of, I guess, a lot of changes happen for the child, you know, within the space of 5 years. And if you have all of that running behind the scenes, you know, it's very difficult to co-parent successfully in these kind of situations, as you know. But to think of all the development milestones that they're going through, and, you know, the support that they need from a parent throughout their young life and throughout their adult life too, probably. But you know, parents can't give that if they still have all of these uncertainties and all of this emotional turmoil.
No, and it's the old saying about, you know, you take care of yourself first, so that like in the aircraft safety briefings, you know, you take care of yourself first, and then you look after the children. Because if you're not emotionally stable, and, you know, if you can't be there for them, and you're all this instability is going on in the background, the mind can't focus on helping the children to grow. And the legal system as it is, you know, and there is improvements then at the moment coming down the line, one would hope, but it is an adversarial process, and that's what it was built to be. It didn't take into account, you know, emotional couples, you know, families that been tearing apart. And it's solicitors and barristers. When I was training, you know, you're trained to fight for your client, fight for them, and fight their corner, and you're speaking for them. But there's another side, and there's a third party. There's a lot of times there's the third party who's no fault at all. They weren't asked to be involved in all this. They were simply born, and you know, they're the little ones, and they have to go through all this, and it's very, very difficult for them. And again, take the time and the cost into it, you know, with mum and dad spending all this money and emotional turmoil in the background. It's very difficult on them, no matter what. No matter how hard you try and how good each parent is to the child, you know, there's always some effect on the children, and they can get over it. They can get over it once the parents can move on and live a separate life beyond the old relationship, build a kind of a new relationship. It doesn't have to be best friends and going for Christmas dinners and all that sort of stuff. It just has to be something that the children can see, you know, the parents have come to an agreement between themselves, but with the children in mind. And that's very child focused, you know.
Yeah, and it's making them feel safe, I suppose, in the new setup and in the new system. But like, I suppose that, you know, something just struck me when you were talking about that, how difficult it is. And I guess with Harmonious Divorce and with this process, like, we're not waving a magic wand, and we're not promising that, you know, we're going to eliminate any conflict. This is a magic pill. It's not, because it can't be, because, you know, you're a human being, you have emotions, and, you know, it's always going to be a difficult journey, always. But you can kind of make a choice. Like, it's almost like, I think, if you knew what was ahead of you, if you take the route of the solicitors and the barristers and if you actually knew, if you could kind of get it, if you went through it and you could get a time machine and go back, you would never do it again. You'd go a different route, you know. So I suppose you can make it easier on yourself, or you can not, you know, be it through you're angry, you feel you have a right, you think you'll get a better deal by going through court. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work like that anyway, because first of all, as I said in my previous video, most of these cases are settled anyway before they go before a judge. And they're settled in very, very difficult circumstances, you know, on the day of the hearing, in a public setting, where you're discussing very, you know, sensitive details about your life and your family's life, with people all over the place, and you have to make a very rushed decision. So that's the majority of what happens with couples when they actually do go ahead with the legal route. Or if it does go before a judge who doesn't know you, doesn't particularly care about you, and just makes a decision on all of your assets and where your kids are going to be, you know, spending Christmas, with very little input from either party. So it's not even a case that you get to stand up and tell the judge, well, I feel aggrieved because this, that, and the other. The judge doesn't care. And it's, in Ireland, we have no fault divorces. So even if you've had a situation where you feel hard done by and someone has been unfaithful or whatever, that doesn't really come into it in Irish law. Isn't that right? It's just
absolutely. And I always say it's kind of, the divorce is always a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
There's no winners out of it. It's not a business transaction. It's not a deal, in that sense. It can't really be win-win either, because it's you've lost something that's special to you. People go into a marriage not expecting to divorce. They have a history. There's obviously, there used to be some love there within the relationship. So it's a difficult time. The best you can kind of get is an equals. Now that doesn't mean everyone gets 50-50, but it means that there's some fairness to it. And each party has to be fair to the other party. In the Irish law legal system, there has to be proper provision, and that means proper provision that each partner or spouse has to have a place to live and be able to sustain a lifestyle, and that each child is looked after by each parent, and that each child has as much access as possible to each parent. Obviously there are things like work situations and geographical difficulties and things like that, but it's trying to be as accommodating as possible to each person, and to the children first and foremost. So it's not a business deal in the sense that I'll give you this if you give me that. It's kind of like this is what should be done. And the judges only see the black and white on the paper. Really, they'll the couples never really get a chance to have their say in court, because and that's what a lot of couples that fight to the end want. They want to have their say, but it's not to have their say in court. They want the other person to hear what was
that's
done,
exactly it.
And how they feel. And that's I think with Harmonious Divorce, the therapy and the counseling can give them, and mediation can give them that as well, but the therapy and the counseling can give them that kind of roadmap to be able to have their say. And it's not about you did this and I did that and anything like that.
No.
But it gets them to a place emotionally that they can build on this relationship, that they can sit into a mediation room, and maybe some of the sting has been taken out, and that they can sit down and hash out a few details on the kind of the legalities of things. And I think and just bring them through and help them, hold their hands to some degree, and help them through this process, because it is a difficult time for both of them, no matter who initiates or what happened in the past. It's a difficult time for both parties. There's no one comes into a mediation room or a divorce or separation in the courts, overjoyed about what's happening.
No, of course not. And it's a sad time, even if it's something that you want, it's still. I think that surprises a lot of people when the day they get divorced, you don't come out happy. It's not like, and I know some people have divorce parties. That's fine, but it's actually a sad thing. Like even if it's what you want, because it's particularly when you have kids, it's a grieving, I guess. It's a grieving for what could have been. But I suppose bringing it back to kind of what we do and Harmonious Divorce and how we approach it and how we can sort of help and guide and handhold, as you were saying. Like a big part of it is, so we obviously have a 3-step process. So the first step is you go through a series of therapy sessions, psychotherapy, together, and then also individually with a specific divorce therapist. So you'll have a divorce team, you'll have a divorce therapist, a mediator, and then an individual kind of program worker who's going to liaise with you and book you in for your sessions. But you in the first sessions of the psychotherapy, that's where you get the opportunity to be heard and to have your voice heard. Both parties do equally. And I think that is so important, because I know obviously I draw on my own experience a lot, but I've also, worked with a lot of other people too, in terms of, what they felt they needed and what was missing and what helped them. And as you said, like, you can't move forward until you felt that that other person has heard, you know, what hurt you've gone through, or how you feel, or how you think they made you feel. And it's not about blame, but it's just about giving them the opportunity to feel that they've had that chance to be heard. Because as we've agreed, like, a lot of people think they're going to get that in court, and no one ever gets that. No. And it's very frustrating, because, you know, if you do go through the court process, it's all over, it's been settled, you never got your chance. You can't really, it's very hard to move forward from that, you know. And it's very hard to move forward and co-parent successfully. And I'm sure both parties would find that. So that's what we have, I suppose, with the psychotherapy and with step one, is you get that chance to do that. And it's not all about talking about what went wrong and you know, he did this, she did that. It's not, but it's just allowing both parties to feel that they're heard in a professional, controlled environment, you know.
Yes, and then the mediation is kind of, and the therapy as well, it's more future focused as well, you know. So obviously there will be a bit of background and about what you know, what each person may want to say about what happened or what's happening up to this point. But beyond that, it's to get beyond the now. To look, you know, in a year, 5 years, 10 years down the line. If there's no children involved, it can be a lot easier in a lot of ways, because there can be a kind of a cleaner break to some degree. But especially with children, you know, if the child is, as I said earlier, 8 years old or 9 years old, you know, 1 year down the line, they're 10, 5 years down the line, they're teenagers, things are going to crop up with teenagers. 10 years down the line, you know, they're moving into adulthood and then going to college and you know, moving out of home. Now, you know, what are the plans then? What needs to be planned in advance so that there is no huge argument down the line? So they have to kind of focus on the future of the new relationship. And I think the counseling can certainly help with that, more so than just mediation. A lot of family mediators are practicing barristers and solicitors, so they may not be 100%. I don't want to disparage them, but they're still, their training is to fight.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and they don't represent one or the other. But you know, there has to, from my position, having gone through, and your own position as well, having gone through the situation. I've gone through the legal situation as a practitioner. I've gone through the legal situation as a client. I've gone through mediation and as a mediator. So I can empathize with each party there. I can empathize with what they're both going through at that particular time. And in my experience, you have to be able to empathize with them in separating couples mediation. It's a different ball game than, say, workplace mediation or anything like that, you know, because it's all the emotional history behind it, and the emotional future. So it's to take all that and you know, help them in the process, bring them through what needs to be discussed, and yes, it does deal with the legal things like the assets and the family home and the living arrangements and all that, and especially the children's access. But if they go through the court process, they're not sitting in the same room discussing with each other. They're letters back and forth with solicitors. They might have a negotiation settlement meeting, but again, they generally won't be in the same room. It'll be solicitor, barrister carrying from one side to the other, you know, meeting in a corridor.
You even get a room, Joe.
yeah. If you're lucky, you get a room. That's before the court dates. But you know, the barristers and solicitors will meet in the corridor. They'll come back and they'll say to you, you know, well, this is what they offer, and you're only hearing this again from a third party who is working for you, you're fighting for you. And you say, well, I don't want to do that for whatever reason it is. Again, the other side isn't necessarily going to hear the reason why they don't want to give it, so, or whatever, you know. So there's a barrier there, you know. You can't sit in the same room with your ex-spouse and say, well, listen, I don't want to do this for whatever reason it is. and the reason may be valid in their own mind at the time, but their mind might be changed if the spouse turns around and says, well, you know, it would be better for this other reason to do it this way. You know,
if the emotion
specifics, you know,
yeah.
And it can change minds. You can see people in front of you going, well, okay, I didn't see it from that perspective, you know, and it's not an emotional thing. They're not fighting saying, oh no, I don't want to do that because you said something or did something that I disagreed with. But it's more along the lines of, well, I didn't see it from that perspective. So, you know, maybe that suggestion might work out, or we tweak it a bit. And that's what mediation is all about. It's to get the couples to sit down, you know, as you said, in a controlled environment with a professional in front of them. And all I do is direct the process in terms of mediation.
Yeah.
And what you want each couple to do is to be able to talk to each other and come up with ideas and come up with suggestions. And the suggestions can be as wild and as free as they want to be.
Yeah.
They don't have to be accepted by either side.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's just like, okay, well, that's why you're looking for this. That's why, you know, you want our child to go to this school, or why, you know, and this is why I don't, or why I think it might be a good idea. So yeah, it's to get them in the room, and you don't get that in the legal system. You don't get that in the courts. You know, you'll generally. I know you mentioned, you said in your last video you were going through like sort of some numbers there that 80% of people who try mediation succeed. Yeah. There will always be the 20% that don't. Yeah. Now, hopefully, what we're providing here with Harmonious Divorce is that the 20% might be coming from different places that are insurmountable through mediation alone. So if they go through the therapeutic process first, that might bring that number of 20% down again. Yeah. You know, to maybe 10%. So of the 20% that go to mediation and doesn't work out, and I was one of the 20%, it's 99% of those, or 95% of those, I would say, I don't have the statistics for it, but I would say that 95% of those are settled before the hearing happens. Yeah. And at that stage, we personally, we finished mediation fairly early in the process, and then it was another 2 years before we finished. Before another 2.5 years almost before everything was finished up. But the cost had spiraled at that stage. Yeah. And we settled a year before our court date. Okay. So we did settle in the end. But a lot of them settle on the steps, you know, as you say, in the corridor, in front of everybody else, and you're jotting down details that needs to be read in front of the judge. I mean, our divorce agreement has lines. Our actual final divorce agreement has lines scribbled out and words written in, and you can't like. I mean, I said, is there like a version of this where it's actually typed out properly? They're like, no, it's whatever was signed on the day by the judge. Is that like so? Yep. And then I'm sure the same with you. One party goes in, or but both parties go into the court, obviously, with their legal teams. One party gives evidence. So, and all it is, you know, what's your name? When were you both married? Why is there any chance of reconciliation? Do you agree with the you know, they kind of go through kind of not word by word. They don't go through the settlement agreement word by word, but they kind of, you know, it's you're done in 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, and the judge will have a look and just make sure like that. Yeah. The judge wants to see that it's fair, and in some cases, not often, the judge will say, "Well, is this right? Like, does this sound fair to you?" Or, you know, I'm not 100% sure, and they might make a tweak to it. Even so, even though it's great, but generally speaking, you've more control. You've a lot more control, you know, by doing it that way, rather than, you know, letting the judge decide who can just. No. And so again, those that don't settle, the ones that fight to tooth and nail, you know, they may not. They most likely don't have the chance to have their voice heard in court. And they, as you said at the very start, the judges don't want to hear back and forth between couples about what happened in the past. They don't care. Yeah, not relevant. the crockery and the knives and forks.
Yeah.
You know, they'll look at it in black and white, and they'll say, well, this is what's going to happen. This is where your children are going to school. This is where your assets are going. This is how much you're going to pay the other person. This is how much the other person's going to pay you, or vice versa. This is what I've decided for you. And exactly. I don't care as a judge whether you like it or not, but this is the proper provision that I'm providing.
Yeah. And they also,
and each side could hate it.
Exactly. And I find they also, like, sometimes your legal team will say, okay, he did this, right, we're going to include this in, and we're going to put this letter in, and we're going to put this evidence in. Like, really, at the end of the day, the judge doesn't necessarily even look at all of that, you know. So it's you know, I think when you do go the legal route, you'll probably still be surprised, no matter how well briefed you are by your legal team, how quick it is when you go in front of the judge, and how really little, as you say, they look at the assets, they look at the kids, they look at, you know, ability to earn from both parties, and they make a decision. So they really don't go into the nitty gritty of he did that, she did that, as much as you might want them to at the time, or not want them to, as the case may be. But, you know, ultimately, I suppose what we're saying is, if because I know some people do think, well, I'll have my time in court and I'll show them and they'll see and it'll be public and everyone will know. Then that doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen, you know. So not in Ireland anyway.
No, absolutely, and it's certainly not in public, and it's behind closed doors, and rightfully so. It's to protect both the couple and their children. So it's the in-camera rule. So they don't. You go through an awful lot of turmoil. You spend thousands upon thousands of euro, like upwards of up to, if you're fighting in the circuit court, and even if you've only made yourself maybe 1 or 2 appearances, and there's back and forth of letters, you know, you could be spending 20 or 30,000 plus. Like but settle in the end
per person, like
per person,
it's huge. Absolutely. Like I don't think I know anyone who did go all the full way that spent less than 50k like between them, you know.
If you're going the full way and the full hearing, no, you're on adding an extra 20,000 on top of that.
Absolutely. I want to wrap up soon because this has been a great chat, but I want to keep it short enough. But what I just ask you, the final question is, what would you say right now, today, to any person who is going through like either a separation or a divorce, or thinking about it, or, you know, in the middle of the legals, they could be right down in the middle of the legal struggle right now? What would be kind of your one piece of advice to them, or like what, from someone who's gone through it, from your barrister background, from your mediation background, and obviously looking at it through Harmonious Divorce lens, what would be the kind of I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but what would you want to hear, kind of?
What would I want them to hear? Well, I suppose if you were to, if a friend of mine was to ask me what would they advise as a friend, what would I advise as a friend? I would say get it over and done with and agreed as soon as possible. Make sure you're fair to yourself and you're fair to your ex and your children, and get help, emotional help, you know, either from, you know, from friends or support network, have your support network. But the first bit of advice that I took from someone was go to counseling. For myself. And I think it was the best thing that I did at that time. And so actually the first person after my solicitor I saw was a therapist, and from the group the group of counsellors that we're engaged with. So, and I would think as well, if it was, I would ask them how the relationship is. I know it's breaking up. But are they on relative amicable terms? Because there's always going to be some animosity towards each other, or one side to another, a small bit even. But how are they doing together at the moment? And if they are able to go, if they both agree, I would say, yeah, go to counselling themselves together, and I would say engage harmonious divorce.
Yeah.
Because the counselors generally and therapists, they try to repair relationships, and to marriage counseling, and so that they can rekindle that relationship. That's not what we're offering. The therapists we work with are knowledgeable in the relationship is the client.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the client is the relationship. So it's to bring that relationship forward into this new type of relationship.
Exactly.
So rather than reconciliation, if there's no chance of reconciliation, which there shouldn't be if you're going towards a divorce, if there's no chance of reconciliation, absolutely attend harmonious divorce. Go through that process. If you need to bring that relationship into focus, to then go through the mediation process. And you're not waiting 2 years. It could be if you're with us, if you start with harmonious divorce, with your sessions, you should hope your therapy sessions be done maybe within 6 weeks or so, and then mediation sessions again another 6 to 8 weeks. Beyond that, maybe
that depends on each couple, I guess.
It depends on each couple and how much homework and things needs to be done. But the time difference is huge, though. You could be looking at 3 to 4 months all done, wrapped up, ready to move on. Or
and
you're looking at
you're coming out of it having had absolute professionals in psychotherapy working with you on giving you tools and resources to be able to work through what you're going through, but then also they're also trained in how to navigate your children through this. And there's obviously different ways of helping the children depending on what age they are. And while we don't do therapy with harmonious divorce for the children, we will give you a lot of help and resources and tools to bring your children through this as best as we possibly can. So I suppose that
and children are number one. That's the number one thing as well. If there are children in the relationship, to focus on the children and attend harmonious divorce. Go to the counselling sessions. And go to afterwards. Go to the mediation sessions and leave what's discussed there. And don't bring it all back out. So you can move on with your life outside of the divorce process and the separation process. And then bring it back into mediation when you need to discuss the things like the assets and the children. But
one thing I want to say that you said that I want to bring up just before we wrap up, we're going to be here all day otherwise. But when you said about friends, I would say be careful with who you take advice from. So
absolutely, yes. Sorry,
it depends on the friend, and friends can be great. Like friends are great. Sorry, if my friends are listening, they're fantastic. But what I mean is, particularly if you have friends who've gone through it before, they've had their own journey, they've had their own experience, so they're obviously going to be looking at that with a different lens. This is your journey, and just bear that in mind. And like, if ideally listen to the professionals rather than your friends, in terms of if they're professing to know about, well, this is going to happen in court, or you're going to get this, or he's going to have to do that. Like, that's not necessarily the case. So just be aware of that. Be careful of the information you take in from friends who aren't professionals.
When I said friends and support network, I meant on a kind of an emotional level, rather than a legal or a legal advice level, or an emotional support level rather than an emotional advice level. Because friends are like barristers and solicitors. They're going to fight your corner.
Exactly.
They're going to try and figure out what's best for you, and
they might add fuel to the fire too, which doesn't help necessarily trying to reach an amicable agreement.
No, and friends and family will do that, and they will say you should do this and you should do that when it comes to the process of separating. And I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. And even from my own perspective, you kind of have to step back and go, well, no, that's probably not the best idea, because I would prefer to do things my way.
Yeah.
But do things the fair way.
Yeah.
And yeah, just be, as you said, be careful about what.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't take advice necessarily from friends about what to do and what not to do. No.
But yeah, I think be fair to yourself and be fair to your ex-partner. If you can look at it from that view, knowing that, yeah, especially if there's kids involved, like this person is going to be in your life for the rest of your life, whether that you hate that or love that, but they are, because even
on
when
a certain level, yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously on a certain level, but like even when the kids are getting married and you're having grandkids, like they are going to, you will be in each other's lives to some extent,
Yeah.
So it can be, it can be a nicer journey, or it can be terrible, and you can you can deal with all of the issues, or most of the issues now, and just move forward and have a happy life, or
move forward with your own life and have a happy life. And as well, the turmoil they're going through now will end.
Yeah.
No matter what, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And the hard step is to go to something like counselling or mediation. And once you've done that, that's massive. It's step number one. And at the end of it, you'll be more thankful for having done it.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Joe, so much for coming on. And if anyone's listening to this and they're struggling or they're going through any stage of divorce or separation, and you want to just pick up the phone or to have a chat with either myself or Joe, just send us an email. It's hello@harmoniousdivorce.ie, and just give us a little bit of information, your contact details, and we'll schedule a call with you and just talk to you about how we can help. But we have a team of absolutely fantastic professionals waiting, who are understanding and empathetic, who know what you're going through, and we're here to help. And that's our message, I suppose, for you today. All right, I'm going to stop recording.